What would you do if you started getting thirsty for blood? And when you try to fix your bloodlust, you end up running into a sister you didn't know existed. But you keep drinking her blood until she ends up dead, and all because of a family curse. Today I'm gonna break down the mistakes made, what you should do, and how to beat the bloodline curse in Hitsuji no Uta. Now this dude over here has no idea his life is changing forever. His name is Kazuna, and he's been sleeping in class recently. But when his friend asks him about his college plans, Kazuna says he's not going to college, and it's all because of how unique his family is. But that's when his friend reminds Kazuna that his uncle is planning to adopt him. Kazuna doesn't know anything about his real father and what he does because his uncle refused to tell him anything. Kazuna has not seen his dad since his mother died 10 years ago. After school, Kazuna heads off to his club activities where he meets this beauty painting, and she's all alone. Her name is Yaegashi. She loves to paint, but what she doesn't know is that she's already in danger because while they were talking, Kazuna sees blood trailing down her fingers. That's when he realizes that she's gotten injured, but for some weird reason, he really can't hold himself back from wanting a bite of her juicy red blood. Kazuna covers his mouth to stop himself from going after her blood, but as he does, he remembers his uncle telling him about an elder sister he has who lives with his father. But when he opens his eyes, Kazuna realizes that he either passed out or fell asleep. After excusing himself from Yaegashi's painting room, Kazuna heads down to the train station and realizes that after a long time, he now remembers the way to his old house where his uncle took him from. For some reason, he decides to check it out. When he gets there, the house is still the way he remembers it, but that's when he realizes something. Someone has been living in the house all this while. There he finds a strange-looking girl. She tells him she's been living there all this time. Her name is Chizuna, and she's older than her boy with just a year. She also informs Kazuna that their father died 6 months ago, and Kazuna throws a tantrum because he didn't hear anything about it. But that's when Chizuna informs him that she told their uncle about her father's death, so if he didn't hear about it, that's between him and his uncle, not with her. Now, if I were Kazuna, I wouldn't waste another second to hear anything, and here's why. It's obvious something is going on. Kazuna already had the weirdest day. Started thirst-trapping, lusting, whatever after Yaegashi's blood, and now, together with a taste for blood, his memories of his childhood coming back, it all seems more than just a coincidence to me, and that's why I would investigate even further, because I wouldn't have gone back to the house. Remember, currently we're at a risk to ourselves and to society at large, and here's why. Kazuna yet doesn't have an explanation for why he started feeling like drinking blood, and he doesn't know why he passed out. That means they apparently don't know about herself, coupled with the fact that our father decided not to live with us since we were young. I'm gonna do everything in my power to figure out what's wrong with me, obviously, and that's why I would start by going to a hospital to get myself checked out, and if he had done this, he could have learned about a psychiatric condition called clinical vampirism. It's called Renfield's syndrome, which is a syndrome that makes the carrier prone to drinking blood. But because he's an idiot, he went to a house instead. He could have gotten himself admitted, been on the road to some well-needed treatment and therapy. I mean, sure, he might have gotten locked up, but hey, you don't know for sure. But instead, here he is, stuck in a house, chatting with a sister who, for all we know, could have been stalking him all this while. I mean, we've never talked to her, ever. If she knew he was living all this time, then why did she tell his foster father about his real father's death? There's a lot going on here. Kazuna is so obviously painfully ignorant. That's why if we want to survive, the first thing we need to do now is not sit around the table getting coffee and chatting. He needs information, lots of it. Anyway, Chizuna tells Kazuna that he was kept in the dark because their father asked them to not tell him anything. She also tells him something that is going to change everything. You see, their family, the Takashiro family, has an illness passed down within their bloodline that makes them want blood just like vampires. Oh, look at that. And whenever the hunger comes, they feel like biting the neck of the person closest to them, just like he felt when he was with Yaegashi. Now, his father sent him away because he was hoping Kazuna would not have this blood disease at all. After hearing all of this, Kazuna heads home with a full head of information and a whole lot of questions. But when he asks his uncle if he has heard anything from his father, the uncle replies that the father has not contacted him recently. Kazuna already knows it's a lie, or at least he thinks it is. Now he feels like he can't trust his uncle to give him information. Later, Kazuna heads to school and Yaegashi asks him to model for her next painting. While he's busy doing his thing, he remembers his conversation with Chizuna, and she warns him not to come back to the house, because if he does, she would drink his blood. Now, as soon as he remembers Yaegashi's blood from that injury the previous day, he's feeling nauseous all over again. Now, Yaegashi offers to take him to the clinic. He says he's fine, and promises to return the next day. When he leaves, Kazuna heads back to the Takashio residence, and sure enough, Chizuna's there. They sit at a table, starts asking more about their family sickness. And that's when he learns that his mother had it, and that all the people that have ever had it all ended up dead either from sickness or from kicking emptying their own bucket, if you know what I mean. Now, after hearing that this will likely be his future, Kaza has no choice but to tell Chizuna he's already experiencing some of the symptoms for about a month, really. Now, Chizuna, realizing that his situation is much more serious than he thought, she gives him a special pill to help with this bloodlust. Now, before he leaves, this nerd guy shows up and he's like her doctor. Then Kazuna heads home, but he lies to his aunt at home that he was at a club activity in school, because if they're keeping secrets from him, then he's decided that he's going to keep his own secrets too. Now, the next day, Kazuna arrives in school and learns that he's been spotted entering his family home, but since everyone knows him as an only child, no one believes when he says that he went to meet his sister. That's why when he heads to the arts club to model again, he actually calls off the modeling gig because she's, well, feeling jealous of this sister getting all the attention. Now, Kazan tries to explain things, but he ends up sounding honestly like a playboy just trying to get off the hook. Now, Yakushi runs off and Kazan tries to go home, but his head starts spinning and spinning. He doesn't feel good and he grabs the medicine Chizuna gave him, but refuses to take it. Then his head starts contracting, almost like he's having a seizure. But then Chizuna shows up out of nowhere just in time and spots him clutching his heart. Now, she asks why didn't he take the meds that she gave him? And he literally says he's afraid he won't be able to stay human if he does take them. Then Chizuna does something drastic and offers him some of her blood from her hand to stop the craving. After giving him the blood, Chizuna heads back home and lays down, waiting for Nerd Guy. And when he shows up, she tells him she gave Kazuna some of her blood because a real Takashiro kid just like she is. At the same time, Nerd Dude and Chizuna reminisce on their childhood and how she once injured Nerd Guy, drank some of the blood on his face. What she doesn't realize is that this is going to change everything for Nerd Guy. Meanwhile, Kazuna spends the night dreaming of more blood that his sister offered him earlier. When he gets to school, his friend chides him for Yakushi's new aloof state, ignoring and asks Kazuna to go make up with her. Kazuna takes his advice and goes to the art room after school, but when he gets there, she's gone. Yakushi's friend sees her changing in the locker room and encourages her to go talk things out with Kazuna because she saw Kazuna looking for Yakushi in the art room. So Yakushi heads back to the art room and finds Kazuna on the floor clutching himself because he mistakenly spilled the red paint, and now apparently seeing this blood red color is triggering his bloodlust. And he warns her don't come closer because he's a danger, and well, apparently Yakushi has more cojones than he does and she doesn't leave. And when he sees she's not leaving, he grabs a piece of glass and uses it to drink his own blood in the most bizarre form of self-medication ever known. After he explains his sickness to Yakushi and heads home to his darling Chizuna. And when he tells Chizuna that he drank his own blood, she tells him that he now needs her blood because he has learned the taste of blood and is basically addicted to her blood. So she grabs a knife and gives him some of her blood. Well, we all know Chizuna basically got her biological brother chemically hooked onto her blood. Well, if we wanted to prevent this, don't drink the blood. It's pretty obvious. But if Kazuna went about his whole blood condition without going to the darn family, his home in the first place, I mean, think about it. You suddenly notice you're beginning to thirst after blood of any human. Logical thing to do would be to go to the hospital, go to the doctors, get a checkup, figure out where's this unholy thirst coming from. But no, he does the exact opposite. He goes home to his family house and now he's stuck in this mess. Psychologists agree that it is easier to prevent an addiction than to break free from one. That's why instead of having to worry about helping Kazuna overcome the thirst, how about you don't get hooked in the first place? Now he's had the taste of blood, specifically her blood, and now he's addicted to it. Maybe he even got a prescription to go to a blood bank and picked up some random Joe Schmo's blood. He really has not done any research at all. Now the next day, Kazuna calls in sick at school and his friend feels like something's wrong. Now only Yakushi realized that she might never see Kazuna in school again. Back home, Kazuna and Chizuna spend their day indoors like normal siblings, just stabbing things, but their conversations reveal they're anything but normal. Chizuna tells Kazuna the first person's blood that she drank was when she was 3 years old. It was obviously dear old dad. She tells him they need to live in the same house together because it just needs to happen. Chizuna says she would discuss it with their uncle, the guy taking care of Kazuna. Later that day, Kazuna runs into Yakushi and she's like sorry for running away last time and the whole bloodlust episode. And then Yakushi gets all cutesy and says she wants to know more about Kazuna and his condition because she likes him and she's not going to be terrified of him and run away. Now, after her entire passionate speech, Kazuna simply says he doesn't want to get her involved in his mess, but when he looks at her, he feels a sudden blood rush again. And as Kazuna collapses on the floor, Yakushi does the dumbest thing in all of history. She offers Kazuna some of her blood because she doesn't want to lose him any more than she already has. So, he grabs her hand and gets ready to feast. But before he can even take a bite, he passes out. Anyway, Yakushi rushes him to the hospital and calls his uncle and aunt. That's where she meets with the nerd guy who serves as a doctor in the hospital. Kazuna's aunt and uncle, they show up and they have no idea what's going on. Now, they're still thanking Yakushi for calling them, and Chizuna shows up at the hospital. And when Yakushi sees Chizuna, she feels all her chances at getting with Kazuna go out the window. So she quickly excuses herself to prevent any further embarrassment. After Yagashi leaves, Chizuna informs her uncle that herself and Kazuna want to try to live together. They're adults now, they can handle their own stuff on their own. She assures them that their health condition can be managed by medication. Nerd Guy drops Chizuna off at home, and by the next day, Kazuna's back to the land of the awake. Chizuna gives him the good news and said that he got the okay, and then she invites him to cross over to their family home permanently. When they get home, Kazuna asks how their dad died, and that's when he learns that dear old dad just turned off his own lights permanently. Now when Kazuna goes to bed, he suddenly wakes up in a cold sweat, and sure enough, Chizuna is like right there by his side. He tells her he just had a nightmare where he killed her, and Chizuna's not moved, and instead, she turns into like Nightmare Olympics and tells him that she also had a dream where she killed their father many times over. Then they kind of like console each other and they go to sleep together. Now the next day, Kazuna heads out early, and that's when Chizuna gets her first sign that things are not right. She tries to get back into the house and she falls and starts feeling dizzy, which is weird because she's already taken her meds, so she should be fine for a few more hours. Now meanwhile, Kazuna heads back to his uncle's place to pack up his stuff because he decided to move in with Chizuna, and he's surprised when he runs into his aunt at home. And dear aunt tries to talk to him about staying with Chizuna because she knows that Chizuna's health is getting worse. Now Kazuna sidesteps the question and returns her gaslighting by asking her why did nobody tell him about dad's death or their bloodline disease or anything. Now of course she can't really answer, so he just excuses himself. The aunt accuses him of trying to run away from them and asks what do they do wrong, but Kazuna brushes it off and packs up the rest of his stuff, and before he leaves he tells the aunt there's no other way because him and Chizuna have the same blood flowing in them, and he asks his aunt and uncle like they don't have his blood, so they can never really understand what is going on with him. That's when Aunt finally slaps Kazuna and gives him a factory reset kind of slap. Alright, so you have Kazuna and Chizuna, they're acting like spoiled brats who think they know what's best for them, but if you want to see them survive, you need to take matters into your own hands. We're going to need to act a lot faster. The only reason Kazuna and Chizuna can even dream of acting like this is because they've been given so much leeway by the adults in their life. Listen, despite how old and mature they look, they're still teenagers living in their high school days. That's why their aunt, uncle, and dad should have done everything to keep these kids under control. For starters, take away access to the real world. They're all hell-bent on being in seclusion either way. Grant their wish, but here's the thing. Their seclusion would be from food, water, anything that keeps them sane. Because sometimes to strain kids out, you have to show them the extremes. They'll start to reprioritize things. Then we can try to sit down like a proper family and have a real conversation about what to do with the situation. Now, a few days of starvation might be too much for them. We could go back to just the proper slap in the face factory reset, or we could do this. Anyways, after the factory reset slap, Kazuna just turns around and walks away. Doesn't give her the chance to explain why she slapped him, or maybe they could have done something differently to prevent things from going so haywire. He goes back home and just falls into Chizuna's embrace because seeing his aunt sad somehow just made his heart so touched, and he falls to the ground. Now, Chizuna realizes that this is more than just a feeling. He's having another vampire episode. So she grabs a knife and gets ready to give him some of her blood, but then he stops her because he's a stud. No, not really. Actually, he's decided to abandon life, and he doesn't care whether he lives or dies. When Chizuna hears this, she locates a special capsule in her cupboard and tells Kazuna that if he gets tired of living, he could do the deed by using the capsule. She also lets him know that this is what their father used to take care of himself. Even with that, she gives him some of her blood just to keep him going for the day. The next day, school goes on vacation, but Kazuna doesn't show up for the closing events. That's why Kazuna's friend gives Kazuna's report card to Yagashi to give to him, because despite their falling out, she's the only person that knows where he lives. Meanwhile, Kazuna is just chilling with Sis, and then he notices her face looking pale. Now Yagashi takes the file to his former home, and that's when she learns that he's moved in with Sis. After she leaves, she goes to the train station to shed some hot tears. At home, Nerd Guy shows up for more checkups on Chizuna and announces that she's already overdosing on the meds. Chizuna claims that it's harder not to use the drugs. She is trying to limit them, but that's when Nerd Guy points out that it was easier for her in the past because her dad was there to supply her with the needed amount of blood to stop her from overdosing. Anyways, after he's done, Nerd Guy invites Kazuna to walk with him, and that's when he tells him that Chizuna's situation is really bad. And when Nerd Guy asks if Chizuna's collapsed at all, Kazuna says no. Nerd Guy explains that the drug she is taking is bad for her heart. Now she's overdosing, and her heart might not be able to keep up with the effects of the drugs very soon. Now he hears this and he says, would he change if giving her his blood would like that do anything to the situation, since their father's blood did the job just fine? Except Nerd Guy says the only for Kazuna's blood to have the same effect is if Chizuna feels the same way for him as she felt for her father. Nerd Dude explains that if it were that easy to get her hooked on new blood, he would have done it long ago. Now after the convo. Kazuna returns home, and Chizuna tries to find out what they were talking about, and Chizuna joins him by the door while he's watching the moon, and that's when she asks him to never leave her alone anymore. She stares deeply into his eyes, and they confirm the whole suspicion and get all mushy and stuff, but the blood condition decides to stop the Lannister craziness because Kazuna's head starts pounding with electric shocks, very different from before, and this time Kazuna can't control himself and he goes for Chizuna's neck and sucks enough blood to keep him calm, while Chizuna is just lying there feeling super happy and asks him to want more of her blood. Now the next day, Nerd Guy goes for a checkup, and when he sees the bite wound, he's really upset at Chizuna for letting Kazuna bite her, but when Kazuna gets in that state, he loses all rationale. Now Chizuna's all sorts of hell-bent on defending her darling brother. When Chizuna asks Nerd Guy for more drugs, he said he's taken her off the medication because her life is in danger. He also warns her that if anything goes wrong with her heart again, he'll be forced to admit her in the hospital whether she likes it or not. And the only reason why he hasn't done it yet is because he's trying to keep the whole Takashiro family illness thing on the down low. After Yakushi picks up painting, and as the brush strokes down, her mind goes back to Kazuna, and despite everything, she still misses our boy. Back at the hospital, Nerd Guy tries to think of a way to help Chizuna. He recalls the conversation with her father where he tried to get him to let Chizuna go. Now Nerd Dude even tried to run away with Chizuna once, but it didn't work out. He wanted to help her get to Tokyo and forget all about the life and curse of her bloodline. And of course, Chizuna was way too much of a daddy's girl to get with the script. When she refuses, Nerd Dude throws all caution to the wind and admits that the reason he's trying to save her so badly is because he's in love with her, and he uses a chance to try to steal a kiss, but it doesn't change anything. Later, Nerd Guy spots Yakushi at the hospital, and she's trying to get information about Kazuna's whereabouts because he's not been in school since forever. Now, the nurse does the right thing by not giving her anything, but Nerd Guy is a blabbermouth in love with Chizuna, and he will do anything to get Kazuna out of his way, so he offers her the very generous bit of info that she's looking for by giving her the house address. And then he also shares very private medical records of Chizuna and Kazuna with Yakushi, who's really nothing but an outsider, except Yakushi admits that she's already heard about the sickness from Kazuna himself. And that's when Nerd Dude tells her that it would be best for her to leave Kazuna alone if she already knows how twisted his family is. But our girl is more of a lover and a bit of a fighter, so she decides to stalk him from a distance, and at home, Kazuna and Chizuna get an unexpected visit from Kazuna's aunt. Now, Auntie asks Kazuna and Chizuna to come live with them so that the siblings would not be separated and they'd have a chance to, be looked after by adults. Despite her noble intentions, they refuse and send her away. After she leaves, Chizuna has a whole nother round of bloodlust attack, and at first she tries to brave her way through it, but when that doesn't work, Kazuna offers her some of his blood, and he uses the opportunity to become the replacement donor for her father. And even then, Chizuna refuses because she's afraid of what her drinking his blood will do to him. So she passes out, just like Nerd Dude predicted. Well, this is a situation. I know Nerd Guy feels like a subtle character, not much influence in the show, but he's Chizuna's physician, and whether he admits it or not, he has some influence over her actions. Now, the problem is that Nerd Dude likes Chizuna way more than a doctor-patient relationship. He finds it difficult to make choices that are in her best interest. Nerd Dude already realized long ago that staying at home away from the constant care of a hospital is negatively affecting Chizuna. But because of his relationship, he just can't bring himself to say it and do what needs to be done. So if I was him, you gotta start by calling the bullcrap on this whole weird situation of the blood curse, because what the Takashiro family is suffering from is not a curse. They're suffering from a lack of information and exposure. Yeah, they don't want public embarrassment and shame, but if the public was aware of this, say more research funding would be given to medical researchers to carry out more research into the cause, possible solutions to the blood condition, and with the right motivation and enough support, they could have tried genetic modifications. Scientists could isolate the particular gene causing this whole bloodlust and this whole thing, and possibly neutralize it. So if I were in their shoes, make the condition public, take her to the hospital, get Chizuna into a special ward, invite all the doctors, all the best people all over the world, and come up with solutions for this really weird family. Now, Kazuna calls Nerd Dude and they rush her to a ward, and he promises to look after her for a while and tells Kazuna that Chizuna's condition is not really bad. Kazuna leaves Chizuna in Nerd Guy's care, but on his way he runs into Yakushi, and while she's good at painting, she's really bad at stalking. They talk for a bit and Kazuna is cold towards her and tells her just forget about him because he's planning to forget everything about himself anyways. After that, he simply walks away and leaves our girl heartbroken. At night, Chizuna wakes up with no memory of how she got there. Nerd Dude tells her that he would never let her go back to her father's house again. Now the clinic is her father's clinic, and they're gonna live there together permanently. Back home, Kazuna experiences withdrawal symptoms because he's grown dependent, literally chemically dependent on Chizuna's blood, and now he can't sleep since she's not home. At the same time, Chizuna asks Nerd Guy to take her back home because she doesn't want to sleep in the clinic and she's worried about Kazuna. Now Nerd Guy tells her the whole situation about her heart, and he breaks down and tells her don't choose Kazuna over him because he became a doctor because of her. Turns out they had an accident him when they were younger and she licked his blood and it's a whole thing. Now, Nerd Dude realizes that her heart will never belong to him, so he does a really dumb thing that anybody who's taken a Hippocratic oath can do. In the dead of night, Chisa has a dream about her mother. Her mother was also going through the same thing, but when their mother tried to attack her, because she was too young to do anything else, she stabbed her mother in the neck and killed her. When Chisa finally remembered about how her mother died, she's more determined than ever to head back to her family home, because that's where her mother's body is resting. She drops a note for Nerd Guy in the dead of night and joins a bus, heading back to the Takashira home. Now, Kazuna wakes up just in time to receive her and tuck her into bed, all nice. Kazuna promises to be with her always, and she tells him that her sickness is different from his, and that's why she asks him to go back to be with his friends and classmates from school. But our boy is, well, smitten and refuses to move an inch. She tells him that he should forget about her life and live his life to the fullest because she's about to die. Kazuna whips out the whole drug thing that she gave him and promises to be the Romeo to her Juliet by following close behind her. But she refuses to let him have that sort of pleasure by dying by her side because she tells him that it's a fake drug because she already threw out the real one and now he's going to be forced to live his life whether he likes it or not. And shattering that little bit of hope that he had left, Chizuna dies and goes off to join their mother's spirit by the cherry tree in the compound, leaving Kazuna alone, dependent on her blood, totally devastated. And despite all of that, drug being fake, he takes it regardless and holds her hand and dies too because apparently the drug was not fake.